Hi, this is Lisa from Loops Needlepoint. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to do the framed Scotch stitch. This is a variation of the regular Scotch stitch, which looks like this. It's a series of squares. The difference with the framed Scotch stitch is that each of the squares will now be surrounded by a single row of continental or tent stitches. It's a great stitch to use as a variation of the Scotch stitch to give a different effect. It's also useful if you have an area of your canvas that you'd like to fill with something like a Scotch stitch, but that doesn't divide equally for the amount of squares or the size of the squares you'd like to use. So let's see how this works. Today I'm working on a canvas which is size 13 mesh. I'm stitching with DMC's Pearl Cotton number 3. I have on my canvas a square which is 11 by 11 stitches, which doesn't divide well to allow me to do just the squares of the Scotch stitch. However, if I use two squares that are size 4, that are 4 stitches across, and each of those is surrounded by a frame, that gives me 8 stitches for the 2 squares, the frame on either side plus the middle, that's 3, so that will give me my 11 stitches, and it should fit in nicely. I've already stitched for you the outer frame on the left and the right. I'm sorry, the left and the bottom. This is just to get things started. These were all regular continental stitches. I went in through the top hole and I came down diagonally across one cross of the canvas. Now I'm going to start the Scotch part, the squares part. Now since I'm going to do them as size 4, I need to allow myself the space for 4 stitches. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go up here. This is going to be my corner stitch. And it's, again, a regular continental stitch. I've come up and I'm going down across one cross of the canvas. My next stitch is going to go directly next to that stitch I just put in. This one's going to have a length of 2. So I'm going to go across 2 crosses of the canvas and share a hole with that frame stitch. My next stitch, again, is going to come right next to the previous stitch. And now I'm going to have a stitch length of 3. 1, 2, 3. And finally, my last stitch is going to go next to the previous one. This one has a stitch length of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know I've lined it up right because it goes right into the corner of that frame. Okay, so now I have the upper half of the first square. Now I need to do the rest of the square. So if I go, I'm going to start going down below that stitch I just did. And my stitches are now going to get shorter again. 1, 2, 3, and down into the middle. I'm sorry, the bottom. Again, I go up. I go in right underneath the last stitch. And I'm going to go diagonally across right into the bottom. I don't necessarily have to count because I know that it should line up to make a square, but again it's going down. So that was across 2 crosses. Oops, this last one will go across 1 cross of the canvas. And that completes my first square. All right, now I need the frame. So the frame is going to be, again, single continental stitches, starting up at the top. This is going to be a vertical part of the frame. And I'm going to do it, the next stitch right below the before. And I'm always crossing over 1 cross of the canvas, making sure to always stay on the diagonal. And I should have 4 stitches to get me down to the bottom. And finally, I'm starting my second square. So this means I'm going to go up again. This is the corner stitch, all in line across the same horizontal line that I had before. Cross over 1 cross of the canvas and come in. My next stitch again is going to be length of 2. It comes up on the same horizontal row, 1, 2 crosses and in. The next stitch comes right next to it and down As long as I'm always staying on the diagonal, I don't really have to count it. And again, now I have the top half of my square. Now I start bringing it down. So I go down this time, and my next stitches are always going to be coming down directly below the previous stitch. And there we have the second square. Now again, I need the frame, the outer frame, so I'm going to do a row of single continental stitches. And you can see how it's coming out the squares in their frames. It's just missing the top. All right, no problem. Again, I need to do a row of continental stitches all the way across the top. I'm going to do them for consistency to always start at the same end. So I'm going to start at the left side, and I'm going to stitch them all the way across. And there you can see I have my framed squares, and it totally covers this square that I wanted it to cover. For the rest, it's the same thing over again. I need to do another set of 2 squares with the frame in the middle and on the side, and then a row of continental all the way across the top, and that will give me my framed Scotch stitch. Here's a picture of the completed framed Scotch stitch covering the entire square. You can't see any of the blue outline anymore. And you see it gives a great effect with the framed squares. It can really add something to your piece. Let me know if you have any questions.